Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant and welcome back to Elite Dangerous on the PlayStation 4. Now on the previous video we had a look at one of the engineers. In particular it was Todd the Blaster McQuinn, and we upgraded one of our weapons. Now what I said in that video is that in the next one, which would be this video, we're going to go and have a look at one of the planetary surfaces in order to collect some materials. So that will involve driving the SRV and get into use of the scanner. And you can see here we've got some materials. We've got a little bit of 55 in total. Some of it very rare, some of it quite common. In fact, it seems I've got more rare stuff than I have common stuff. Look at that. You can tell how rare it is by the grade over the side. The more pips there are in the little shape there, the more rare it is. And we got data as well. This usually comes from scans. And again, you can see I've got quite a lot of the rare stuff. So this is all generated RNG most of the time. RNG being a random number generation. So it's random what the game actually gives you when you scan a specific object. So, the engineers, as you saw, were over here. We've only got one unlocked at this particular time. If you've been working on this, you may have a few more unlocked, or you may have invites to different engineers. And again, you can have a look at the Inara website to decide what engineer you want, because they'll all upgrade, they will specialise in certain modules, or different modules. You may also remember the community goal I was participating in back last week. You've probably participated in those yourself. Those will have all completed by now, or they should have done. Being Thursday, community goals usually run Thursday to Thursday. And we can see here the list of community goals, and it looks like this one is still running at the moment, but it's due to stop any time now. Yeah, 5 hours 29 minutes, and I only did a little bit on that. I'm in the top 100%, 500,000 credit reward that I'll be able to claim when the community goal ends. And the other one is in Rakapilla, and I got in the top 75% there. I doubt what I'll do any more. But assuming I maintain that rank there, I will get a reward of 4.5 million credits. And finally, the community goal you remember me doing is in Acellus Primus. And there's a graphical glitch there. You can see a flashing square for some reason. And this one's now come to an end. It completed. It reached its 8th tier right at the top. And you can see my reward is 14.3 million for reaching the top 50%. And at the moment, I've got a grand total of 1.5 million credits, and that is now going to jump up dramatically as I complete the community goal here. We'll complete that and hand it in, and we'll get a nice fat reward. And there you go. Got a nice healthy balance there. So what we're going to do today then is have a look at the system map and work out what planet we want to go to. Actually, what we're going to do is back up out of the system map here again, and we'll check out where we'd normally find one of the engineer blueprints, and this would show us what materials we'd need to collect. So we go back to engineers here. We can have a look at Todd the Blaster McQuinn, and unfortunately I haven't pinned a blueprint there, so that means I have no information on what material I need to collect for my chosen blueprint. But fortunately I do remember what upgrade I want, and I know that I need nickel. So nickel is a material we're going to look for, and fortunately that is pretty common. So when you visit an engineer, you do have the opportunity to pin a blueprint, and when you do that you'll be able to check the blueprint and see what its requirements are at any time you like. Unfortunately you can only pin a single blueprint, but again I forgot to do that. But like I say, I do know which material I want. I want nickel. And that can be found down on planetary surfaces, and it can also be found in asteroids if you're mining. But we're going to go down on planets and get it. So what we do is bring up the system map, and we're going to have a look in this system to see if any of these planets have a good supply of nickel. So then we select over the planet that we're actually looking at, and you can zoom in if you want. You can actually zoom right in, but that's unnecessary. Zooming is done with the triggers on the control pad. And with the shoulder buttons, you can tab across to the description of Acellus Primus 1, or whatever planet you're on. This one tells us it's a metal-rich world. Now, metal-rich worlds are very good ones because they usually have better materials or more rare materials down on them. And down here, right at the bottom, if we scroll down on the D-pad, we can see the planet materials. Those are that are available down on the planetary surface. The iron down there is 6% of what's around. The nickel is 20%. And down near the bottom, we can see the more rare materials. Arsenic is quite often one that most people struggle to find. And on this particular planet, it makes up just 1.9%. And if you look around, you should be able to find arsenic in higher values. So you do need to look at planets that have got a blue ring around them. If they haven't got a blue ring, then you won't be able to land. And I should be clear that all the content I'm talking about today is Horizons only content. If you haven't got Horizons, then you won't have access to the engineers, and you won't be able to land down on planets anyway. So here you can see the different makeup of each of the planets, and you can see nickel is just 16% here, so it's a bit lower, 15% here. Yttrium, 1.2%, one of the more rare materials, so you could perhaps go down there and look for that. So it seems Acellus Primus 1. Acellus 1 is the planet that we really do want to go to. It's got a good supply of nickel there at 20%, so we're going to select that right there, and we're going to undock and head out to that planet. Before you do leave though, do make sure you've got an SRV. It's a real pain to end up at the planet, find your way all the way out there, landing only to discover you've forgotten to bring an SRV with you. So you can get these from the outfitting screen. And again, to do any of this, you will need Horizons. You need Horizons that update to access the engineers, as well as the planetary surfaces. And of course, the Horizons update also allows you an SRV. Whilst we're en route to the planet then, we'll have a quick look at what the wave scanner is all about. Now the wave scanner is located on your SRV, and it's used for discovering materials. You've got a wave going around here, and that's why it's called the wave scanner. And what it will do is register things and objects that are located within a certain distance of your SRV. Now each object down on the planetary surface will have a different signature, and that is represented by a different pattern on the scanner here, as well as a different sound. So you have things such as cargo canisters. We can click there, and you can see that's what a cargo scanner will look like. That's what a cargo canister will look like up in the distance, and as you approach, this signature will compress down to be ever narrower. But we're not after cargo canisters, we're after material, and these are found in bronzite, outcrops, mesosiderite, and outcrops, as well as metallic meteorites. So if you're fortunate enough to find a metallic meteorite, these are the sort of things you'll probably find arsenic in, or some of the rarer stuff. Same with the mesosiderite. They look like little thin bars at the bottom of the scanner. Some bars are thicker, some are thinner. So the metallic one are two thin bars right at the bottom. The mesosiderite is one little thin bar. Now each item also has a unique sound. Listen. So that's what mesosiderite sounds like. And metallic meteorites sound like this. So you can actually tell what it is you've got picked up on your scanner just by sound alone. Here's an outcrop. So the outcrop and the metallic meteorite actually look very similar in their scan signature, but the outcrop is slightly higher up. You can see there. The metallic meteorite is lower down, but the best way to distinguish between the two is due to sound. Now sometimes you'll find that two items are very close together, and when that happens you'll end up with, say you've got an outcrop there as well as a metallic meteorite. It will sound like this. It look like that. So you'll understand much better when we actually get into the game, but I just wanted to explain the difference between various signatures. And you can actually come to this website yourself. This is wavescanner.net, and it's a great resource. Here we are then, approaching Acellus 1. Now you can land pretty much anywhere you want. Some of the materials are laid out in different locations, some of them around craters or around the hilly edges of craters, some in the different coloured zones of the planetary surface here. But for the purposes of finding nickel, or just for the purposes of this video. It doesn't really matter too much where we land. Nickel is quite common. What we are going to do is land near the edges of one of these craters here. Any one will do. This one's got a nice big mountain thing in the middle, and it's also got a good mixture of different coloured areas there. So we've got a whole variety of surface elements here. Remember not to approach too steep. If you have the red bar there, you're approaching a little bit too steep. Certainly once you're in the red there, then glide mode won't actually function, as say you're entering too steep into the planetary surface here. And you also need to look for a relatively flat area. One thing you don't want to be doing when driving around in the SRV is driving over overly bumpy ground. For starters, it's going to be a little bit difficult to try and find a decent area to land in there. But assuming you manage that, then you're going to be bumping all over the place. Also keep an eye on the gravity. The gravity is quite high on this particular world, 0.89g. Very close to what we experience here on Earth, with the 1g being Earth normal. Some worlds are much higher. You can often find worlds 2 or 3g. And those are more difficult to land on because as you touch down, your ship is actually 2 or 3 times its actual weight, and so can potentially take more damage. You have to actually touch down a lot more gently. And on some worlds you may find them as high as 9g or even 13g, but those are quite rare. More common, much more common, are the low G worlds, 0.1 and sometimes even lower. And whilst they make for great landing, they can also make for difficulty in driving around in the SRV, as the SRV jumps all over the place. So here is as good a spot as any to land. You probably would have landed on the planet's surface multiple times by now, but I haven't actually talked through it. As you get low down, you deploy landing gear, and here we've got a little notification telling us that the terrain's unsuitable, and that's either because it's too unlevel or far too bouncy, far too rocky. Thinking bouncy because the rocks make you bounce. So the little marker there is now telling us we've got to align here, so a bit strange because obviously we're not aligned to the horizon, but we've got to be aligned to the ground. And you can see it tells us to tip in each direction until we're actually where we need to be. And then we can simply set down. And you can hear there we've made contact with the ground. So once we're there, we can look down using square and down on the D-pad, press X on the SRV and then simply deploy. So we've gone through getting out the SRV in previous videos, but it's always worth recapping. I'm sure not everyone has watched every single PlayStation video. So right, now we're out here. And the thing we've got to pay attention to is the SRV scanner. Now we've got two things here. We've got the radar, which is in the middle. Now with the radar you will want to zoom out a bit, and you can see me doing so there. Hold down X and use the shoulder buttons and you will zoom in and out. You want about a 75% zoom, like I've got here. So there's a good spot. So once we've got that all set up, we need to pay attention to the SRV scanner, the wave scanner, which is at the top there. So we talked about that a little bit on the way over here. So as we move out, you can see that the wave scanner has already picked up something. You can probably just about hear it as well. I'm not sure how well that sound is coming across, but we've definitely got a strong visual marker there. So that looks like a bronzite over there. And as we get closer, the little indicator there on the SRV, the marker at the bottom, is quite wide. That will start narrowing in. And once we're within a certain range, it will come up on the radar, and we'll then be able to select it. So many different objects appear on the wave scanner here, and this is how we navigate around planets, finding objects that we're actually seeking out. And there you can see it appearing there quite a way away already. This has been recently improved. In previous patches, in previous versions of the game, you had to be within around about 20 meters or so, or less than 100 meters, before you could actually select it. But now that's been increased to over 200 meters, which is much improved. So as I said, it's the bronzite. Just over the hills here. We can't shoot through the hills. So when you find these, what you need to do is very simple. You just shoot at them. And if your weapons aren't working, then make sure they're bound to a fire group. The SRV weapon is bound to button 1 and the data link to button 2, so we don't need to be doing any scanning out here. It's just the weapon that we need. So when you've destroyed it, you see the bits fly out. Because this is a 0.89 G weld, they drop down to the surface quite quickly, but on lower G welds, the impact of your weapon will cause them to scatter high up into the sky, and you'll have to wait for them to drop down. So we can now select these, and we've got some germanium. We can also look across at the contacts panel and see what materials we've got. We might not want to collect all of them. In this case, we were after nickel. So we've got some nickel, and we can now deploy the cargo scoop. Oh, we don't want to shoot again. That's circle and up, by the way, on the D-pad by the default commands. And we can then drive over to it and select the nickel. And you can tell new material discovered. That's because it's the first time we've actually discovered nickel. And if we have a look over on the inventory, go to materials, we're now able to see we've got some nickel. And we've got 3 pieces. That's because for every single piece you collect, it will actually give you 3 units. So we're going to collect the other nickel as well. And just pressing the wrong key there. Right, we've got the other nickel, so we should have now 6 units. So I'm going to collect all the other pieces here. And I believe this was some... Right, Universal Cartographic discoveries. That's something worth talking about. Universal Cartographics, of course, is the corporation that you sell all your discovery data to. When you discover planets, you can go to the station and sell that. Now, they also are interested on the makeup of elements and materials down on planetary surfaces. So any discoveries you made down here will contribute towards your cartographic discoveries, and that's new discoveries, new materials discovered. So if we go up, we can have a look here. Promotion to mostly aimless. And that's our elite ranking for exploration has been increased. So if we go over here, we can see we are now no longer purely aimless, or we wouldn't be, assuming that it updates. It won't update until we either relog or change instance, unfortunately. Right, so over there it looks like there's some more bronzite, so we're going to head over and get that. Now, interestingly, on the scanner there you can see something a bit different. That often signals some sort of structure or other such things. Very different markup to what we saw for the materials or the rocks down on planets. And obviously, as I select it, that's my ship over there. We don't need to be going to that. So that is how we find materials down on planets. Some of the best material rocks are mesidorite or mesidorite and metallic meteorites, and they come up as the little singular bars very low down on the SRV wave scanner. And you'll be wanting to look for them if you're searching for things such as arsenic. So do check out the website that I linked, the wavescanner.net website. That will show you all the indicators that you need on the wave scanner. And also check out Inara. It has all the blueprint requirements and all the engineers as well, so you'll know exactly what sort of materials you need to collect. And as you saw in previous videos, and we'll have a very quick look again in a moment, there's data as well. Scanning data is done by either scanning objects down on planetary surfaces, but usually it's done by scanning objects up in space. And you can see the other... oh, it's an outcrop this time. So we just look what objects we can get from this, and then we'll be heading back to have a look at data scanning. Alright, we've got carbon, cadmium, iron and zinc. So just very quickly we'll have a look at something else. Over on the inventory tab, you may have noticed there's another option here called synthesis. Now, synthesis is things we can do actually inside our vehicles. We've got the SRV ammo restock, we've got SRV repair and SRV refuel. All of these need materials of various types, and if we click on that we can see we need iron and nickel. And what that will do will repair the SRV hull, but we're already at 100%. And you can see there's 3 stages to that. We have basic, standard and premium. Now they each are progressively more expensive, but they each give a better enhanced boost. This gives us a bonus of 50% to hull strength, and premium gives us a boost of 100% to hull strength. And you can also see that these are used for in-ship items as well. We have an FSD injection, and basically the standard boost, the basic one, will give us a 25 distant boost. Here we get a 50% boost, and there we get a 100% jump to distance. So basically, if we're in our ship, my Cobra at the moment has a jump range of 22 light years. So if I used that, we'd get a boost allowing us to jump a total of 44 light years. So very, very nice, very, very handy. And comes in use for all sorts of situations. And of course, you can also have a boost to your weapon as well. So then, we'll catch you back in space in just a moment. So what we need to do then to find data is scan ships, or sometimes other things such as satellites, but we're going to go for ships here. And one of the best places to do this, of course, is space stations, as you're always getting traffic going in and out the station. But we're going to try something a little bit different in this case. Could potentially be a little bit dangerous, but we're going to drop into a conflict zone because it's actually chock full of ships. So let's have a look here. Now, as long as you don't engage within combat here, you should be left alone, as long as you don't pick a side. Conflict zones is something we'll have a look at in another video. Very different to resource extraction sites or anything like that. Here you've got constant activity with ships fighting each other. Essentially little war zones, 2 sides facing off, and you can choose which side you want to actually join in on. If you don't choose a side, like I say, you should hopefully be left alone. Although sometimes you do get picked on, or sometimes you do get glanced by some fire that's just scattering around the place. So if you want to avoid that, try and sit off on the sidelines. Don't get right in the middle of the conflict. And now we can drop in. If you haven't visited one of these before, you'll see exactly what I mean. So we should get a load of ships appearing on the contacts here. There's contacts on the radar. And loads of ships. So we're going to come to a stop. These are all shooting at each other. Hopefully we don't get caught up in the fire. Now if you did want to join in, assuming you had a combat orientated ship, you can go along to the functions menu here, and right at the top it says faction, and you'll be able to drop that down and choose which faction you want to side with. But we're not going to do that. We're simply here to scan the ships. So what we do as we scan them, you can see they come up as a hologram on the left with a little circular icon rotating around, and we didn't get anything for that scan. So what we do is we just keep scanning. Sooner or later something will come up telling you you've got some sort of data for having completed the scan. Different types of ships can give you different types of datas. Again, if you have a look at the Inara website, it will tell you where most of the stuff can be obtained and what type of ships it can actually be obtained from. It seems with the recent update, the amount of data from ships has actually been dropped down. It used to be fairly common to get some sort of information from a ship, but now that no longer happens. Now you can only scan a ship once it's already been scanned, then there's no point scanning it again. And you can see this is why I've actually come to the conflict zone rather than a station, because there's many more ships here. To have scanned this many ships around a station would have been there quite a long time. Now, if I end up shooting one of these by mistake, I would automatically end up joining the opposite side. So make sure you haven't got your weapons deployed, unless you do want to get involved with the conflict here. Now, I'm not saying coming to conflict zones is the best place to get ship scans. Far from it, in fact. I've been in quite a few minutes and actually have not picked up any. What you pick up is also fairly random, but it's also determined by the activity the ship is in. And up on the top right info panel there, you can see I've now got 2 scans. So a ship that's in combat will have its weapons deployed, so it's more likely you'll find some sort of weapons scan data from ships like that. So there's a lot of different scan data, and there's a lot of different places where you can pick these up. Stations are a good example. I'd suggest going to a starter system, that's LHS 3447, Erevert or Erenin, and hang out outside one of the stations inside open mode. You get a lot of NPC traffic, and as well as a lot of player traffic, and you'll be able to scan all those ships as they come and go. You can also get them from unidentified signal sources. These are the zones that spawn in space as you're flying around. You'll get a little icon saying unidentified signal source, and as you scan it, it will tell you what type it is. Now that's a bit too much in depth for this particular video, so we're going to signal sources at a later date. But just to say that signal sources are often affected by the state a system is in. And star systems can be in a whole bunch of different states, from conflict to retreat to outbreak, and they all have a different impact upon the functionality and the operation of what's going on inside that system. But at any rate, I think that gives you a good indication of how to go out there and collect certain materials. I hope it's some help, and like I say, if you want to go and find out where you can get specific materials from, do check out the website linked in the video description. So then, I'll be back very soon with some more videos. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.